hard and she'll never know I love her to escape. And bones are thrown, sticks and stones, just to let you validate your message to
And we are back. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Loaded HQ and welcome to Away Days. It's great to have you back again, previewing our next massive fixture. And I couldn't think of anyone better to share this preview with than the main man, Chris Hall. How you doing, Chris?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Not too bad, fella. Not
Good,
too bad.
Good,
and yeah, you know, we're coming off. We've talked about it all week, but we're coming off a fantastic point away at West Ham at the weekend, which you know we fully deserved and actually probably could have gotten a little bit more out of it. I've got to be honest, but it was a fantastic trip. Horrible stadium, as you can see behind me in that picture. Actually, how full it is there in the back of the picture is probably how it was throughout the game. I've got to be honest.
Wow.
Because they literally did not make a sound for those 95 minutes. It was a little bit embarrassing. But we went in there without ASM, but we didn't shirk the challenge. Big Dan Burn led the way with some fantastic defensive displays in the first half and in particular in the second half. And look, from going 1-0 down, we managed to plug it back. This man with a very, very important goal for Newcastle, his first of the season. We were going absolutely mad. Fully deserved and a very, very deserved point. And we had to do a little bit of shithousery throughout along the way to ensure that we got the point. And this man was right in the thick of it.
He was.
But yeah, look, Chris, you know, a good point for us. Overall happy. How are you feeling now, nearly a week on?
Yeah, do you know what, Pete? Immediately after the match, you're absolutely right. I was tinged with disappointment because I thought, you know what, we could have had a couple of extra points there. Yeah. But, you know, after reflecting, I mean, you cannot, and I've said this numerous times, as not just, you know, since the weekend, but this season, you cannot be disappointed going away from home and getting a point, especially against a team who are battling at the right end of the table and they're fighting for top four. And let's not forget, it wasn't just you know, we didn't nick a point. We fully deserved the point, and we should have maybe had a little bit more. So to come away with a performance like that is fantastic. So yeah, I'm really, really pleased. It keeps the unbeaten run now going to 6 games, and hopefully it's going to be 7 come the weekend.
Fingers crossed. And look, we had some midweek games, not us in particular, but we had some midweek games in there. So we had Burnley at home to Tottenham, which didn't go the way that we wanted. Burnley got that very important win for them. Yeah, I could see it coming. I could see it. I was watching the game and I just thought, Tottenham are a counter-attacking team. They're not a team that like a lot of the ball because they haven't got really very many good ball-playing sort of attacking players on the pitch. But you could see it coming, and when they got their goal, I knew Tottenham weren't going to score. But hey, Palace went to Watford and absolutely smashed them 4-1. So that was definitely a positive result. And what was a 100% a positive result is Leeds going to Anfield and getting absolutely trounced 6-0, smashed their goal difference. And look, with a really good result, on Saturday, we will go above Leeds unless they pick up, a surprise result against Tottenham, which is another tough game for them. So it puts us right in the driving seat, and the picture in the table could look a lot different come 5 o'clock Saturday. But look, we'll get into the game. A massive, massive game away at Brentford on Saturday. And look, as always, I say it every week, there is no better way to preview a game than having the opposition's point of view. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome in Lewis from BEESOTTED's Brentford podcast. How are you doing, Lewis?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Pete. Thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. Pleasure to have you. And we had a representative from BEESOTTED last time in Ali. She came and joined us before the game up at St James's Park. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you on, Lewis. Look, we've just been talking about it. It is a massive, massive game for us, for Newcastle in particular, and I'm sure the same for Brentford as well. But before we get on to kind of like the details of the game, what's your, as a newly promoted side to the Premier League, what's your sort of overall feeling at this stage of the season in February with regards to your season so far?
Well, I think if you'd said that we would have pretty much a point a game so far, we've been 14th position, we would have been delighted to, for that to be the case at the start of the season. We have tailed off. We got off to a really good start. We're unbeaten for several games, got some top results against Arsenal, West Ham, drew with Liverpool, beat Wolves, games that we really hadn't expected to get much from. And we're playing with real aggression and purpose. And, we just couldn't believe the start that we made. We've had a couple of dips. We had a dip kind of probably October, November time. Then we kind of scratched out a couple of results against Villa and Watford, and we've had points here and there, but our form has been a real concern in recent weeks. So we're delighted where we are, but we know we're in a scrap now.
Definitely. And if I'm right in thinking, a few of the pundits have been saying on various channels that Brentford haven't won for quite a few games. Is it what, seven or 8 games in?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we got knocked out of the cup at Everton as part of that run as well. So yeah, we've really not looked the side that we were at the start of the season. We do now have some decent players coming back, which is already making a bit of a difference, but we need to really get our act together quickly, starting on Saturday, actually.
Definitely, because, Chris, I want to get your thoughts on this. I mean, with regards to the season, for long parts of this season, we've been looking up at Brentford when you beat Arsenal first game of the season, you got a draw against Liverpool at home, and you've been going to teams in getting points and looking really, really solid. But, come Saturday, with a win, we could go above Brentford, which at long parts this season we never thought could happen. Like, what are your thoughts on how that kind of turnaround's happened?
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? I mean, Brentford made an absolutely fantastic start to the season. It's funny you say that, Pete, about the first game of the season, because it was literally the first game of the season, wasn't it? It was on the Friday night. I went to the pub with my friends and we watched the Brentford game, and I think it finished 3-1 to Brentford, didn't it? Am I right in saying that?
2-0.
Was it 2-0? Where have I got 3-1
Yeah.
from? But it was an absolutely fantastic game, and Brentford, what a way to start. What a way to start your first game in the Premier League, and it was great to watch. Everyone was really excited. A lot of people have been talking about Thomas Frank and saying, he's a really, really forward-thinking manager, and we were all really excited to see him in the Premier League, along with obviously Bielsa. So when Brentford came into the league, they made a far better start than what I thought they were going to, if I'm honest, Lewis. And obviously we had all eyes on Ivan Toney, being the next Newcastle player. So the fact that we can now go ahead of you if we win at the weekend, it is surprising to me. Although obviously we've made some really good acquisitions, as you know, in the January transfer window, and I do think Eddie Howe has improved us no end. It's been a slow start for Eddie Howe in terms of getting the players to understand his way and getting them on side and getting us playing good football, and that's what we're seeing now week in, week out, and it's great as a Newcastle fan to see that. I mean, what I want to ask you, Lewis, is the start that you've made. Do you feel like obviously you've petered off a little bit, but what I'm trying to say is, are the performances still at that level, or is it just the fact that you've been unlucky, or are you a little bit concerned that like this form could continue?
Well, the big turning point for us, I think, was the injury to David Raya, because he was in fantastic form. He's really grown as a keeper in his time at Brentford, and him coming out of the team at the time he did, we had a young Spanish guy who's come in to replace him, Fernandez. And you could see the defence losing their confidence. They'd really come to see Raya as a huge part of that back line. And, he'd come for crosses. He was commanding. He's very good with his feet. Sometimes takes some quite scary risks with the ball, but he's a decent kind of sweeper, and you could just see the confidence draining. And we got absolutely hammered by Burnley up at Turf Moor. That was until recently, that was their only win of the season, and it could have been worse than the 3-1 it was. And that was Fernandez's first game, and that kind of lack of confidence, although he gradually improved and you could see the understanding beginning to improve in the back line as well. Actually, that was a problem for us for probably 4 or 5 games, and we've been recovering ever since.
Yeah.
In the last couple of games, we've really become, in my view, very negative. Actually, one of the great things about Brentford, particularly in the Championship, was the football that we played. It's very kind of free-flowing, possession-based, always playing through the midfield, taking risks, and a lot. You could tell even from the first game of the season that we've become more pragmatic. Going longer, particularly to Ivan Toney, missing out the midfield against the bigger teams. But the last, with the exception of the Palace game, which was in between Man City and Arsenal, we went to Man City and Arsenal desperate for a 0-0. You could see it. We had, the back three became a back five. Great chunks of the game we were without the ball. When we did have it, we couldn't keep it because we were just really negative, actually. And it really, it started worrying a lot of us that actually, with the pressure of trying to eke out points somewhere, we'd actually lost our kind of DNA, if you like. So that was a worry. I do think, though, with some of the key players returning, in particular Josh Da Silva, he should be pretty much approaching full fitness now. And he is a quality attacking player who can carry the ball through the midfield. And that's what we've lacked. We've lacked real creativity. Yeah, exactly. We've lacked real creativity in the middle of the park. And you can begin to see, that's beginning to come back. We saw that a little bit against Palace. He had a cameo against Everton in the Cup and just looked absolute quality. And we haven't got a big enough squad to cope with the loss of players like him. So hoping that Toney will be back at the weekend as well. He's a big loss for us. The minute we go without 2 or 3 key players, you can see how thin the squad is, So I am more optimistic about the games coming up, but some of the recent performances have been a real concern.
Interesting. And look, I wasn't going to come to him just yet, but let's do it now. I want to talk a little bit about this young man, Ivan Toney. Obviously, ex-Newcastle United, never really got given a chance under Rafa Benitez, went for pastures new, and really built his career up the other end of his career. And obviously, tore it apart in the Championship, got himself obviously a move to Brentford, and then in the Premier League this season, I think, if I'm right in thinking, 6 goals this season for Brentford.
That's right, yeah.
In the Premier League. And then on social media, he makes a comment on a video about Brentford. And interestingly, we haven't yet seen him since that point. Before we get into that, what do you, as a fan of Brentford, make of the comments that Ivan Toney said? And is there a possibility that the Brentford fans, are going to react negatively to him when he does return, whether it's on Saturday or in a few weeks' time?
Well, he played one game after the social media thing. So he played in the cup game against Everton, picked up a knock, or that's what we understand, and hasn't played since. So he played in the next available game after. It was out in Dubai, I think, where he kind of, was at a party and made that comment. I think probably everyone recognises it was unwise. It looks, looking at the video, it's difficult to work out quite what spirit he said it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It is almost like he might have been kind of like tricked into saying it. But yeah, you can look at it and think, well, that's disrespectful to the club. We are the ones, as you were saying, who've really given him the platform to really get all the exposure that he's had. But I think he is a leader at the club. We can't be too precious about him. We need him. And I think, if he can come back at the weekend or the following game, get back on the score sheet, all will be forgiven. But he's apparently carrying a calf injury. We didn't know anything about it until the teams were announced against Man City when we were up in Manchester, and it was it's a moment of panic, because we have come to rely on him quite significantly. But he hasn't been seen since. He's back in training this week. So whether he gets a start or whether comes off the bench, hopefully he'll get some minutes on Saturday. And his return is really important for us. He links things up. He's probably not got as many goals as I think we thought, he might have done. And the goals have come from all over the pitch this season, which is unusual. He absolutely dominated the goals for Brentford in our Championship kind of playoff season. He's played quite a lot deeper this season, linking up play, and probably not in the 6-yard box as much as we'd want to have seen him, but he has been needed in the middle of the park as well. So, but on his day, he is magnificent. And there's been, I would say, 3 or 4, maybe half a dozen games this season where he's been head and shoulders our most important player. Other games, I have to say, he's looked a bit kind of lethargic, and I think when things aren't going his way, you can see his head drop at times, and and that's often followed by a nasty little foul, or he'll get involved with the opposition and pick up stupid yellow cards and so on. And so he's his own person. He's a one-off, Ivan Toney, and when he's at his best, he gives the team absolute confidence. And from the penalty spot, I've never seen anything like it. He is unbelievable, and that just demonstrates how calm and collected he can be when he's in front of goal. So he can't come back a minute too soon. I think all probably has been forgiven, to be honest, by most of the fans. But it will certainly, if he can keep us up, he will, be a legend. I suspect he'll be off at the end of the season, whatever happens. Irrespective of the social media stuff. I think he's attracted enough interest from bigger clubs this season, possibly yourselves included, who've obviously got a decent checkbook these days. So, but yeah, he's got 13, 14 games to really sign off in style, I think.
No, definitely. And obviously the question there from Unify the Toon. Massive thanks, firstly, for Unify the Toon. Who put the thread out today. If anybody in the chat has not seen the thread that Unify the Toon put out today, please go and have a look at it. It is fantastic, and it's basically a review of what money Newcastle have got to spend, and it's on the back of our Loaded show that we did earlier on in the week with Kieran Maguire. So a really, really fantastic thread. If you haven't seen the Kieran Maguire show, check it out. The price of football, his knowledge of football, and how much teams and money is available for teams to spend is unrivaled. Really, it's fantastic, and it was a really, really good watch. Managed to catch it back after Tuesday, and if you haven't seen it, go and watch it. But massive thanks for Unify the Toon for that. And yeah, if we can just put that question up again, I think, of course. Yeah, I mean, I think you partly answered it anyway, Lewis.
The question was, would we sell? I think we probably would, partly because I think if the player wants to go, it's probably going to be unhelpful to hold on to, particularly such a strong character as Toney. I think the strategy of the club is, if the price is right, we'll sell. And we've had a conveyor belt of our star players moving on to other clubs, and that's just the way that the club has been able to get to the point that it has. So we're accustomed to seeing players as almost a little bit like ships in the night. You can't get too wedded to them, because you know that when they're at the peak of their value, we will sell. And I think Toney will be no exception there. What will be really important is who we replace him with, because there's no one in the wings at the moment at the club who's anywhere near that level. So we'd have to go in the transfer market, and I think we'd have to spend some money to get someone in so that we don't feel his loss for the whole of next season.
I think that's a fair point, and a really good question there from Unify the Toon. If you've got any more questions for us on the panel, and in particular Lewis, get those questions in. I know Chris has already started a number of them already, which we will come back to as the show progresses. But Chris, just before we move on, just your thoughts on the Ivan Toney video, and kind of, if that was a Newcastle player, if that was Alan Saint-Maximin, for example, or sort of high flyer or catalyst in terms of the way in which we play, how would you react to that? How would you feel about that as a Newcastle United fan?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Pete, because I think Lewis is absolutely right in what he says. Like, it probably has been taken a little bit out of context, because I have watched it a couple of times, and yeah, what he's saying isn't great. And my initial reaction would probably be anger. But then on the other hand, I think, would he be stupid enough to say something like that to about his employer, who pay his wages, and the fans, who without the fans, football is nothing? Do you know what I mean? I'm not so sure that it wasn't a tongue-in-cheek thing. Do I think it was a good idea, or am I defending him? Absolutely not. But I do think, sometimes people clip things, don't they? And who knows, a couple of seconds after that, in that video, we might have gone, "Oh, I'm only messing. I don't mean that."
Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah, so initially, no, I wouldn't be happy about it. And to be fair, I'd probably, and this sounds bad, Lewis, but you'll know where I'm coming from. If that had happened, say Saint-Maximin did that like a year ago, I'd probably be like really angry and upset and really disappointed. If he did it now, I'd just be like, "See ya, we'll move on." But that's me. That's me with my new ownership head on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's right, Lewis. To be fair, it is right. No player is bigger than the club. And at the end of the day, I think Brentford's a really good club, and I think that Ivan Toney could get a move elsewhere, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll work out for him. And I know that you Brentford fans think a lot of Ivan Toney, and sometimes the grass isn't always greener. He when he left Newcastle, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he went to Peterborough. Yeah. He went on loan, didn't he? I think he went on loan to Wigan, I want to say. I might be wrong saying that, but he went on loan for a period. Then he went to Peterborough. Then he got a move to Brentford, and it's worked out really well for him. And I just think, maybe he could do with another season or two at yourselves. But if the big money comes in, I could absolutely see why you would cash in on him and just kind of move on and maybe improve elsewhere in the squad. It's just one of those things, really, isn't it? But
yeah,
it's not the be all end all, is what I'd say. That from my point of view, anyway.
No, I think that's a fair point. That's for sure. But look, one person I want to get your thoughts on, Lewis, is the person that's been the catalyst for projecting you to the Premier League in these last recent seasons, and it's this man. What does this man represent to you and the rest of the Brentford fans? What are your opinions on him? How has he made such a dramatic change to Brentford Football Club?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, I think, to be fair, and I think he is brilliant, and I'll come on to that in a second. But he didn't begin it. There was, he came into a club with a really clear sense of direction, and actually followed a couple of very good managers in Warburton and Dean Smith. Right. So, and he was Dean Smith's assistant. So there had been pretty much a pre-agreed style of play that had been agreed, and that was coached already throughout the club. So he came into a structure that was there already. But yes, I mean, he has done extraordinary things since he took over. I think Brentford gets a lot of praise, rightly, for our recruitment, and some of the signings we've made over the last 6-7 years have been unbelievable and have given us the financial leverage to get bigger and bigger and bigger and challenge harder and harder and harder. But what's sometimes overlooked, I think, is the improvement that players make when they do arrive. Yes, they've been, the talent's been spotted, but then the talent needs to be polished, if you like, and improved. And you can see that across, certainly the first 11 at the team at the moment, they're all significantly better than when they joined the club. And so much of that is down to Thomas Frank. He's a really engaging person, I think. He's also very clear in the way that he goes about his business, very consistent in what he says, very intelligent, and I think the players totally understand what's expected of them. He kind of rolls with the punches and doesn't get too overexcited depending on the results, and he's very firm about, well, we've got 24 hours either to celebrate or to commiserate, then it's back to the training ground and we're on to the next game. He's good at not setting targets for the team, very much focused on the next game. And I know that is a bit of a football cliche, but it seems as though Brentford really do live and die by that, and that's a lot down to him. He's just seems like a really, really nice person, I think, as well. He's a gentleman, and yeah, I mean, I can't speak too highly of him. Actually, he actually got off to a very bad start at the club. When he took over from Dean Smith, he didn't win, I think I'm right in saying, for the first 10 games. But typical of Brentford, they kind of stuck with it. They didn't want to just panic and, change again just for the sake of it. They stuck with him, they backed him, and that continuity has really kind of yielded results. And I think the other thing I'd say about him is how impressive he has been since we've gone up. We were all quite fearful, I think, that we'd be, but at this stage, like I was kind of saying at the start, there was every possibility we might have been 5-6 points adrift at the bottom of the table, towards the end of February. The fact that we're not really demonstrates, I think, how tactically astute he is and how well he has prepared the players for going up. It's a huge jump in quality between the Championship and the Premier League, and for us to be making a decent fist of it is real credit to him in particular, I think.
Definitely. Chris, what are your thoughts around Thomas Frank and what he's done at Brentford? Because he gets a lot of plaudits from the media, and in my opinion, rightly so. But what are your sort of observations of him and the work that he's done at Brentford?
I think he's done a fantastic job. I mean, it must be difficult, and Lewis alluded to it earlier. It must be difficult being such an expansive, free-flowing kind of manager in terms of how he wants his team to play. And when you're in the Championship and you're one of the big fishes in the ponds, to then have to translate that and go from being a big fish in a little pond to a small fish in a big pond must be difficult. He's not your kind of Rafa Benitez type manager where he builds. He makes sure that his defense is solid and that they don't concede. I think he's one of those managers who thinks, right, how can we win this football match? And he does remind me in many ways of like an Eddie Howe, in that he doesn't just think, oh, I'm going to lose this game. I know Lewis said earlier that he'd set up very defensively against the likes of Man City and Liverpool. But to be fair, I think most clubs would do that anyway. Even clubs who are mid-table would probably try and do that, because those two teams especially are absolutely outstanding. But I think I like Thomas Frank, and to be fair, we were linked with him. During the dark days with Bruce. And I wouldn't have minded Thomas Frank, and he was a name I threw out. It was a good while ago. I think it was before Brentford got promoted, in fact. And from whenever I saw Brentford, it was always a pleasure to watch them. And I feel the same this season. I always feel like they're exciting games. I like the fact that that all the fans seem behind the manager, and it's nice as well to see a new manager come into the league and not be scared. I mean, we saw that, didn't we, with Bielsa? Obviously, that's not going so well now. But we saw that with Bielsa. He's very much got his own way of playing, and he sticks by it. And I think the same of Thomas Frank as well. I think he's got his own beliefs on how football should be played, and he maintains that. So as a neutral and as a Newcastle fan, I do enjoy Brentford, and I was at St James's Park for the Brentford game, and as frustrating as it was, the fact that we were wide open. To be fair, we could have conceded more than 3, but it was such an enjoyable game to watch, and I always like watching Brentford. I always think this will be a good game of football. I like the way that they play, and I really do honestly hope they stay up.
It's interesting you mention Eddie Howe there, because I totally agree. I mean, in my mind, he's one of the best 3 or 4 managers in the Premier League, and it's about time he got this kind of opportunity, I think. But he is always, when Bournemouth came up, they were a breath of fresh air as well. They never stopped trying to score goals. I know, like, it ended into, they got relegated, but the achievement there was extraordinary. And I think there are real similarities between them. They're both young. They've both got a fresh feel about them.
Yeah.
And they're not scared. They take risks, and they play football the right way. And you can tell, just from a distance, it looks as though the impact he's already had at your club is really tangible, But they are very similar, I think, and they're both good people.
Yeah, I'm really surprised, Lewis. Not to go off the Thomas Frank subject, but I'm really surprised at the amount of stick Eddie Howe gets for his time at Bournemouth. I mean, don't get me wrong. When we were first linked with Eddie Howe, because we were getting names like Antonio Conte, Maximo Allegri, obviously I was kind of like, when we did get Eddie Howe, I think the most delighted person out of all of us was Pete. Pete wanted him since day one, and I can't say I was disappointed. I was just a little bit underwhelmed, should I say. But honestly, from day one since he's come into the job, he's impressed me. He's fantastic with the media. He seems fantastic with the players. He's very meticulous. He's doing long hours. He's really bought into Newcastle as a club, and I can't fault him for that. And that is the impression I get with the likes of Thomas Frank. And I just hope that, you know, if the worst happens and Brentford do get relegated, I do hope you stick by him, because I do think he's one of those managers who will get it right. And as I say, it still surprises me now that whenever Eddie Howe's name's brought into conversation, people go, "Oh yeah, but he took Bournemouth down, didn't he?" And you think he's getting compared to the likes of, you know, your Bruces, your Pulises, your Hugheses, managers like that, when everyone forgets about the fact that I think he kept Bournemouth up for, what was it, 3-4 years before they got relegated,
Yeah,
and they're
absolutely.
working on a shoestring.
Quite. And you know, they were typically like mid-table, weren't they? Really, probably some of the highest scorers in the league. And you know, it's not. You know, I don't know if you guys agree, but it's not just about results. You know, it's about being able to go along on a Saturday and watch a team that's trying to score goals and playing football the right way. And Howe's always done that. And Thomas Frank does it as well. And that's why, and you're absolutely right, you know, Pete, and what you said, you know, that a lot of teams are not going to set up to try and get, you know, a huge number of goals against the likes of Man City and Liverpool. But that was what was really strange. It was really strange watching our performances against those against Man City and Arsenal, because I just hadn't seen it before with Thomas Frank. I'd never seen him setting up to try and come away with a 0-0, you know, and the fact it was so unusual, I think, again, speaks volumes for the attacking football that he believes in.
No, I would agree, and I would slightly put Bielsa outside of the Thomas Frank and Eddie Howe bracket, because I think Thomas Frank and Eddie Howe are probably more well-rounded as a manager. I think Bielsa's had a great career and he's managed at some really big clubs. But the thing for me with Bielsa, he is very gung-ho. His management style is only built to last for 2 years. And what we're seeing from Leeds and what we saw from Leeds last night is what I expected. And I said this 2 years ago. And I said, no matter how well Leeds do, and no matter how much the Sky Sports and all the media laud sort of Leeds and how well they're doing, it won't last. You cannot build a team like Bielsa builds a team and expect them to be as intense and to work as hard as they do for no more than 2 years before their players start to break down. So the injuries that they're seeing this season, it doesn't surprise me in the absolute slightest. I was completely expecting this. And you know what? A perfect example, but on a higher scale, Liverpool. Liverpool for 2 years were unplayable, and the only reason in their first season where they were really at their highest level that they didn't win the league is because Man City were just literally on a completely other level. They went points for points, but then Liverpool were able to maintain it for another season and ended up winning the league, and deservedly so.
Yeah.
What you saw after that 2 year period is a complete drop off, and Liverpool were lucky to make Champions League in the end last season. You cannot build a team like that with that type of attacking intensity for long periods of time, and that's where Thomas Frank and Eddie Howe are, for me, at a different level in terms of Premier League managers, is because they're well rounded. You know, we've seen from Eddie Howe, they had the question marks, and me and Chris know about this. Can he build a team that is defensively strong? He started to do that now, and he started to imprint. You know, we went to West Ham, and other than a save that Dubravka tipped onto the bar that never really looked like it was going to harm Dubravka in terms of it was going to go in. Other than that, he had nothing to do. And that was because of the defensive unit that he's built in this team. The likes of Dan Burn that's come into the team, the likes of Matty Target. We're building a defensive unit. And you guys have done the same. You've got a couple of players in, a couple of really good players, in fact. A player that we were linked with in Aya. From Celtic, and we were very, very close to getting him, but typical Mike Ashley doesn't want to stump up the money, but Brentford did, and you got him, and he's a talented player. I know he's missed a few games. And another player as well, Janssen, who was it, funny enough, at Leeds, and then is come to Brentford and is now playing Premier League football. You know, the foundations that you've got there are two solid defenders. I know we'll talk about lineups in a second, and there may be one or two others in that lineup as well defensively. But I just think those two managers are more well-rounded and better suited to Premier League football than the likes of Bielsa. So I just wanted to kind of throw my little sort of 2 pence in with regards to those players. But we'll move on, because one of the players I really want to talk about in a little bit more detail is your winter signing, Christian Eriksen. And look, you know, we all know what happened in the summer, and it was such a worrying and sad moment. I remember, we were watching it on TV and just kind of hoping and praying that he made it through, and he did. Personally, I thought he wouldn't play again, but he seems really motivated to do so. And I have to be honest, Lewis, I was kind of jealous when you guys picked him up. And you guys got the deal done, and you got it over the line, and he signed the deal to join Brentford. But it makes sense because of the links there with the manager and a number of players that were at the club. He hasn't played yet for you. There are rumours that he could well be in the squad at the weekend, or what type of role he plays, not quite sure. What were your thoughts initially when Eriksen kind of signed the deal to join Brentford, and what do you think? What are your thoughts, shall I say, in terms of what he's going to, how he's going to influence Brentford between now and the end of the season?
It's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, first of all, like you said, it's remarkable and it's wonderful that whether he's playing for us or playing for anyone, frankly, at a high level, it's brilliant to see him back. And he's had a couple of friendlies behind closed doors. Apparently has been quite impressive, but it sounds as though he's in very good shape as well, despite obviously what happened and the fact he's not kicked a ball or hadn't kicked a ball in anger for best part of the year. It's difficult to say, and I think he's clearly somebody who at his best is top quality. He is superb on the ball. He can change a game, real goal scorer, particularly from set pieces, which is, I think, going to be particularly valuable for Brentford, because our set pieces have tended to be woeful for 2 or 3 years now, actually. And he's a real kind of expert in those situations. So that will give us an edge that we've lacked for a long time now. I think he's going to need people around him who are going to work hard. And we've got a team of people who will run their socks off. So, he can, again, I'm perhaps stereotyping, because I've never seen him as one of my players, if you see what I mean. So I'm remembering him more for how he played for Denmark, how he played for Spurs, etc. I'm not sure his defensive attributes were, that kind of that brilliant, really. So, but he will be surrounded by players who are going to do a lot of the hard work for him. So that's going to be important. I just don't know. I mean, he's got 12, 13 games. I would imagine he'll probably, if he gets a few minutes on Saturday, I imagine he might get half an hour in the following week at Norwich. Maybe he'll be starting games in 4 or 5 games' time. It doesn't leave very long, really. But there's every chance that he will win us 1 game, maybe 2 games, or get us a point when we would have lost between now and the end of the season. And that could be priceless, actually. It's very much a temporary deal. He's got a 6-month contract. So if it doesn't necessarily work out, then he'll be off at the end of the season. He wants to be kind of getting back to full fitness and to really, I think, demonstrate the Danish side that he is ready for selection for the World Cup. That's part of the agenda here. I don't know. It's very exciting, though. And for a club like Brentford, this is by some distance the biggest name we've ever had playing for us. And it's a little bit like you guys were saying about the very first game of the season when Brentford played Arsenal. You know, all the eyes of the football public were on us, which we were just not used to at all. The same will be true when Eriksen, you know, possibly. It's a shame it's not on TV in some respects on Saturday, but there will be a lot of media interest in his return. But it's a real unknown, I think. You know, will he be at his peak? I just don't know. But the key thing is that he stays healthy and well. And, you know, I understand that he's got this kind of device which does prevent any kind of repeat of what happened in the Euros, thank God. So hopefully he'll be safe. If he can win us a couple of games, then happy days.
Can I just ask you a quick question, Lewis? And again, Pete, it's the same to you as well. Did either of you see the interview with Antonio Conte recently when he was asked about Christian Eriksen?
No, I don't think so.
I didn't see it. No.
Yeah. He was asked about Christian Eriksen, and he was asked, you know, what do you think about his move to Brentford and stuff. He was like, yeah, it's great. And then he all of a sudden he said, it's only for 6 months. And, you know, we're going to keep an eye on him and stuff. And I'd love to have him at Tottenham. And it just made me think, I wonder whether, you know, a lot of clubs, unfortunately for yourselves, Lewis, are just going to be keeping an eye on him, just seeing how he goes. And if he's kept his fitness up as much as you say he has, he should be absolutely fantastic for you. And I do hope he stays with you. But you might find it difficult because already people are watching him. And also, in that interview, Conte was asked about a meeting with him in a hotel, and he said, "Oh, it was purely by chance. We." But honestly, it's the most. Have a look for it afterwards, Lewis.
Yeah,
it's the most awkward interview ever, and like you could tell that he was hiding something, but he didn't want to admit it. It was only about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and I watched it and was like, "Oh, that was awkward." It might even be on the Sky. You know, if you go onto the Sky store and it gives you preloaded videos about clubs, it might even be on there. That's where I've seen it. But yeah, it just made me think it just looked like an awkward video, and I thought, I wonder whether they've met up and gone, oh, you know, let's see how you get on at Brentford.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I mean, you know, like you guys said, the reason we got him really is because of the Danish connection. You know, he'll be playing in midfield with players like Norgard and Jensen. In fact, he'll take Jensen's place. And the Thomas Frank connection. So, you know, that's why he's there, I think. But, you know, his English home really is Spurs. So that would have if we're going to come back to England, you'd imagine that he would have been their first choice. So I get why there would have been some interest and possibly some second stage. You know, that Brentford might just be a stepping stone, but we'll be glad to have him for 6 months anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone, Pete, I'm sure you were exactly the same. Like, I be honest, and I don't mind admitting this, I was like close to tears when he collapsed on the pitch because it was just such a shock. And like you could see the panic on everyone's faces, and the players, you know, they all rallied round him, and it was great that he made this recovery. And I think, like Geordie Toon for Life said, you know, we hope that he gets a round of applause from all fans in the stadium, which I'm sure he will, and you know, he fully deserves. So it would be great to see him at the weekend.
Yeah, we're quite glad he didn't play in the last game because there was a possibility he was going to return for the Arsenal game. And I've just seen someone posted on there, you know, as well, you know, let's hope he gets a good round of applause.
Yeah.
That possibly the only team in England who might have given him. If he does come back against you lot, then that would be much better, I think.
Yeah, look, there's no doubt from Geordie Toon for Life's comment, there's no doubt that Newcastle fans will show that respect that he deserves because, you know, we've always done it. We've always shown that respect when it needs to. Unfortunately, a Sunderland fan midweek passed away in the stands. And, you know, if you look on social media, there's nothing but positive vibes and prayers and best wishes from Newcastle fans over to Sunderland, and they're our biggest rivals. So, look, but when it comes to the crunch, Newcastle fans are some of the best in terms of knowing when it's right to kind of respect another team and another player. So there's no doubt that they'll do that. Look, whether when he receives the ball after that applause that they do, is another thing. But they will certainly show him the respect he absolutely deserves. And he does have a defibrillator is kind of been placed on his heart. So what will happen, and I know this because my mum has the same, is that when obviously the heart sort of like stops, it kind of like gives that little jolt to as a defibrillator does, it kind of like restarts it again. But whether if that goes off and they have it monitored when it does go off, because it might go off and he might not even know, it might be during his sleeping. He won't know when it goes off. But if it does, I don't know what then happens after that. So, for example, when it happened to my mum, she wasn't able to drive for 6 months because she couldn't take the risk because of it potentially happening again. So, if it did go off, would he then be able to continue playing football? I don't know what happens after that point, but only obviously Brentford and the medical staff, involved in Christian Eriksen would only know that. But look, it's just great to see him back in football. Fingers crossed it all works well. And Chris made a great point, actually, before we move on, is that exactly is the thing that's happening, is that other teams are watching Christian Eriksen, checking that everything's going all right. Because, look, he's 30 years old. He is a top talented player. He's playing at Inter Milan in a team that was winning Serie A. There is no doubt. Obviously, you've got a fantastic deal there, but at the same time, there will be a huge amount of teams circulating that if he's okay to go, that they will look to kind of pick him up on a deal. There is no doubt about that. But look, before we move on, Yano completely shattered my opinion on your defensive abilities, Lewis, because we've put solid defenders keep 18 goals in the last 6. So Yano's the one. He always spots the little creaks of doubt in any of my comments, and he hits straight with it. And he's not for that. But, you know what? I wasn't aware of that. You are right. But we'll see. Hopefully those goals conceded kind of improves a little bit on Saturday, and it goes up to maybe 21, 22 goals conceded in the last 7. We could only hope. But I just thought I'd get that in there because I know Yano would enjoy me mentioning that I was wrong in my assessment of those Brentford defenders. There was no about it.
Pete, just while we've got a slight break in play,
go for it.
We've got a new viewer this evening, Lisa Mole, and Lisa has said, "Evening all, long time watcher, first time commenting. Can you wish my hubby Chris a happy birthday for today?" So, big happy birthday to Chris. Great name, Chris.
I knew you'd say that.
Yeah, I did, didn't I? Yeah,
definitely. Happy birthday, Chris. And look, Lisa, welcome to the Loaded Chat. You've got some fantastic people in that chat. Feel free to get involved and ask as many questions as you want. We are the Loaded family, and welcome to that chat. Don't be afraid to get involved in future shows as well. So we are at the stage now where we are going to move on. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is the lineups. So before the show, I spoke to Lewis and I spoke to Chris, and we looked at what potential lineups could be in place for the game on Saturday. So we'll start with Brentford's starting 11 first, and this is Lewis's team that he's put together. So an interesting team there with an interesting setup. Is it a 5-3-2 or is it a 3-5-2? Lewis, talk us through your setup and the reason why these players might start on Saturday.
Yeah, well, we've played, I suppose it depends how you look at it, 3 or 5 at the back for probably about a year now. We switched to it pretty much out of necessity in the Championship, where we were really struggling and it took a couple of games to get it right, having moved from 4-3-3. And then we started getting the results again. So we've stuck with it in the Premier League. Where we have had challenges is at the right wing-back position. So Sergi Canos has been playing in that position for most games this season. He's more of an attacking player than a defender, and I think he's getting found out now quite regularly. So he did start against Arsenal, again was disappointing. So I suspect he will be on the bench come Saturday. And Roslev, another Dane, who is probably a stronger defender than Canos. He did his best with San Maximan up at your place, actually, although he was, I think anyone would have been torn apart by your player on that day, actually. But he's stronger defensively than Sergi, so I think he will probably start on the right. And then you've got a couple of strong, ultimately defensive, very hard-working midfielders in Janelt and Norgard. De Silva providing that skill and the forward momentum. And then you've got Toney and Brian Mbeumo, who have forged a really good partnership this season, actually, up top. And often, interestingly, Mbeumo's been further forward than Toney. As I was saying at the start, Ivan's been helping back in midfield, trying to beef us up in that area a bit. But Mbeumo is quick. He can run behind, and he will stretch your defence in a way that Toney can't. But I think that's there's been a lot of talk on various social media about, has the time come for us to switch to 4 at the back? I think with the 3 games we've got coming up, beginning with you guys, they're all just too important for us to start experimenting. So I think he'll stick with this. But I think Thomas Frank will want the wing backs to get a lot further forward than they did against Arsenal or City. And we've got real strength on the left there defensively. You're absolutely right. Ayer has been excellent this season. Pontus Jansson we know about. Pinnock is probably the lowest profile of those 3 centre-backs. He has been immense for us over the last couple of seasons. He wins everything in the air and is deceptively quick as well. And Rico Henry is a machine. He's actually not with his final ball. He doesn't create as many goals as he should do, considering the positions that his pace and determination gets him into. But one-on-one, he is very difficult for any right-sided attacker to get past. He's certainly one of our best players. And so I think that will be the team. If Tony's not fit, then Wissa will probably play up front with Brian Mbeumo. But it's a combination that is too similar, I would say. They're both quite small in stature. Mbeumo's got electric pace. Wissa's quick, but he's not got breakaway pace in the same way as Brian has. And we lose all of that attacking threat in the air without Toney. So Wissa would come in. Other than that, the team pretty much picks itself, I'd say. And then we've got Eriksen on the bench. We've got Sergi Canos on the bench. And we've got Shandon Baptiste, who came from Oxford a year and a half ago, has been really dogged by injuries, actually. But he's a little bit in the Josh De Silva mode, really good to watch, kind of gliding across the turf, but not as good as De Silva. So I think it's one or the other. If De Silva tires after an hour, then Baptiste will replace him.
Interesting. I know you talked about your strength down that left-hand side. Rico Henry is a terrific left-sided player. He obviously scored at St James's Park, but he was, before we got Jamal Lewis, and obviously since then Matty Target, he was definitely a player that I was interested in Newcastle potentially picking up, because he is a very, very good left-sided player. So look, full of talent in there. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit gutted that De Silva is potentially back in the team. I'm hoping Tony's not in the team, but yeah, it looks like a very good side. Chris, any thoughts?
The best player in that side is Christian Norgard, centre midfield. He is he. I don't know how, but he seems to go under the radar, and long may that continue. Yeah, exactly. Geordie Team for Life has just said this. Absolutely right. And I saw a stat today that not only has he made the most tackles and way ahead of anyone else actually, but also he's covered the most distance in the in the Premier League this season out of any club. Wow. He is a quality player. He really is, and I do worry about, I talked about the inevitability of players moving on from Brentford if the price is right, but he would be perfect for Arsenal, for instance. He's exactly the player that they need to replace somebody like Xhaka, who's just, a walking red card. Norgard has got the lot. He is a class player.
No, definitely. It's really interesting you talk about Norgard, is because when Ali came on the show for the preview in the previous game at St James's Park, she also mentioned Norgard as being your player of the season at that point. So it doesn't really surprise me that you have mentioned the fact that that Norgard is such an influential player for you. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. That is for sure. But we'll move on because Chris has put together his lineup for the game, obviously away at Brentford, and this is the team that Chris has gone for. So, Chris, talk us through your lineup, fella.
Yeah, to be fair, I probably don't need to spend much time on it. I don't think there's many surprises in there, Pete. Obviously, keeping Dubravka in goal, that's a no-brainer. Burn and Shah have been absolutely fantastic since they've paired up. Dan Burn, absolute breath of fresh air, and we're really starting to see Shah coming into form, and the rumours of a new contract are really, really pleasing. As you know, Pete, I'm a big fan of Fabian Shah, and I do believe he has got a future at the club. So fingers crossed he stays. You'll see I've gone Matty Target at left back. Him coming back into the team, obviously he missed out at Villa as part of the terms of his the conditions of his loan deal from Aston Villa. So he missed out against Villa, but great to have him back. He's been really solid for us since he came in. I'm hoping, you've probably seen I've got Kraft just below Manquillo there. I'm hoping Javier Manquillo is going to be fit. If he is, I would start him at right back. I think we've seen pictures, haven't we, from the lads training this week, and Javier Manquillo. I think it was you actually, Pete, that put it on the WhatsApp group. Yeah, there you go. There it is. So I'm hoping he's going to be fit, and if he is, he's got to play. I did actually feel a little bit sorry for Manquillo, that he's kind of on the fringes now, because we've brought in such strong wing backs in Trippier and Target. But now that Trippier is going to be out for the foreseeable, he absolutely deserves that right back position. So obviously I hope that he plays. The midfield three, the three that cannot be broken. At the moment, I know some people are suggesting we try and get Bruno Guimaraes in there, but I just don't think we can. I really don't. I want to see more of him. I'd like to see him play a few more minutes than he is at the moment. I keep calling for him, don't I, on the 65th minute, just to freshen that midfield up. But at the same time, I do have a bit of sympathy for Harwin, that maybe the way the games have been going, and I know in a couple of games we've had 4 substitutions, so we've had to keep it the way that it is. But yeah, in terms of a starting lineup for the midfield, those 3 have to play for me. And you'll notice there, Pete, that Murphy came in last weekend as a direct replacement for Maxi on the left, but you'll notice that I've switched Murphy and Fraser around. And to be honest,
Yano's the eagle eye.
He's already
had it.
Yeah, Yano is all over it. Yeah, the reason I've done that, Yano, is because for me, I know that Jacob Murphy is predominantly right-footed, and I just think I would prefer Jacob Murphy on the right, because I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I do believe Ryan Fraser played a lot on the left for Bournemouth. So for me, I would prefer to see Ryan Fraser on the left and let Jacob Murphy just concentrate on the right. And really, the instruction from Eddie Howe, in my opinion, should just be get that ball, whip it in. I feel, especially from the game at the weekend, that Jacob Murphy was overthinking things, and partly the reason behind that could have been that he kept trying to move on to his right foot. There was a particular occasion, I think it was later on in the second half, where he just took too long and he was trying to cut in on his right foot. And I just thought to myself, me personally, I think I would prefer to have Murphy on the right and Fraser on the left. That's just my feeling on it. But I mean, if it's the other way around, I suppose it won't make a huge difference. But it would be interesting to let Murphy play right midfield, because I do believe that's his natural position. And then obviously Chris Wood up front. I think I said to you the other day, didn't I, Pete, that in fact it was earlier today, funnily enough, that I know there's quite a few people who aren't necessarily big fans of Chris Wood and they've not been impressed. But let's not forget, he's not had many games in the Premier League for Newcastle this season. We've already spoken about the fact that he's used to playing in a very rigid 4-4-2 system, where Burnley used to basically play to him as the focal point. That's slightly different now here at Newcastle. And I think he's, getting up to speed. He's winning all his aerial duels. He's working hard for the team. So for me, he's got to stay in that starting 11. So yeah, that is my 11 for the weekend. I'm assuming Maxi's out, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, look, there have been people tracking Alan St-Maximin on a daily basis, and every day he's been doing his physio work in Monaco. And today there was more pictures of him in Monaco as well. And I think there was someone earlier that had mentioned.
Yes, they did. I think
it was Truls, in fact. Truls, I've got it here. ASM went to one of the best physiotherapists in the world in Monaco, and so that's where he's been this week. And today, there's still a chance, and in my mind I'm thinking there's still a chance that he can play on Saturday. And the reason being is because obviously, he might be doing his physiotherapy, he might then come back tonight, train tomorrow, and be ready for Saturday. But for some reason, I just don't think that Eddie Howe is going to take that risk. I think he's going to want to make sure that Alan St-Maximin is 100% fit, and he would rather do what he did against West Ham, is that not take the risk, let him get right, and then be ready for Brighton next week. So I don't think he'll play. I think that team is pretty spot on. And you talked about it as well, the three Joes, John Joe, Joe Willock, and Joe Linton.
Three Joes,
the three Joes, they are irreplaceable. And the frustration that you talked about with Bruno Guimaraes is that what you would expect at 60, 70 minutes is that one of those three boys would start to tire, that would look tired, that would look out of energy. The problem is that none of them do, and they keep going, they keep pressing, they keep running off the ball, and they look so solid as a midfield three that it's just so hard for anyone to get in there at the moment. The amount of recoveries that Joe Linton and Willock get high up the pitch is fantastic. The way that Shelby controls the game. And you know what was fantastic is something that I noticed. I was talking to someone I was in the stands with, and we both noticed it at the same time on Saturday, is that in the second half in particular, Shaw was darting forward. He was darting forward with the ball, and at one or two times he was looking at getting shots off in goal. But what maybe people didn't notice, and it might not have been on the screen, is that while Shaw was darting forward with the ball, Shelby was tucking as a centre-back. And he was doing that role as a centre-back and sitting in and helping out. I haven't seen that from John Joe Shelby. I don't know about you, Chris. Go on.
Yeah, no, mate, honestly, it's funny. I don't know if you saw it in the WhatsApp group chat, because we were all talking about ways to mix it up and whatever. And I'll be honest, I've seen John Joe Shelby do that a while ago, but he was doing it with Bruce, and he was sitting in between the two centre-backs. Now, I know what you mean, as in letting Shaw go forward and John Joe Shelby sitting in the back four. I haven't seen him do that, but I do remember him often coming deep and sitting in the middle of the of the two centre-backs to make a back five. I think he was doing that under Bruce. It may have even been Benitez for a while as well. But he has done that before, and we were discussing different ways of like changing the lineup to potentially, which sounds odd, but potentially like having a fluid kind of. Oh, I'm trying to remember what it was. It was like a 2-1-3-1-2 or something. I forget what I said on the group, but when we're in possession, we can maybe just let Shelvey push back out and leave the two at the back. When we're struggling, we let Shelvey drop into those two and then have the wing backs pull back a bit. And it wouldn't surprise me if that's something that Eddie Howe's, been thinking about. And that's why you'll notice on that picture that I've got Shelvey sitting quite deep as part of the three. I know he is a free, but he's sitting deep in that three. And I do think that's what they use him for. And it could be what they decide to do with Guimaraes when he eventually comes in as well.
Yeah, look, I've been convinced, and I'll keep saying it, and I'll keep saying it again. Guimaraes is coming in as a Shelvey replacement. Where Bruno Guimaraes fits in this midfield is exactly where Shelvey plays. So I do see him as a Shelvey replacement, and his ideal position is in that middle of the midfield three. And I think that's the difficulty. He's coming off for Willock because I think we're looking after Willock at the moment. We don't want him injured because he's playing so well for us. So we will take Willock off as a protection. But ultimately, I think long term he will be a Shelvey replacement. But look, we saw the pictures of Manquillo back in training. What people didn't necessarily see is that Ryan Fraser was in training too. Now he went off against West Ham. We thought it might be cramped. There was talk about it could be a muscle injury, but the great thing is that on Wednesday yesterday he was in training, kicking a ball, part of that training. So that tells me that things are looking a lot more positive. So some fantastic lineups from both Lewis and Chris. I'd be interested to see what the lineups are Saturday at 2:00. And yeah, we can only hope and pray that there's no Toney, there's no De Silva, there's no Henry, and there's no
Eriksen
as well. But look, I don't think Newcastle fans will be so lucky.
I'm hoping Sam Maximin stays in Monaco till Sunday.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
He terrified us.
Well, you think fingers crossed anyway. Yeah. I mean, do you know what? It's funny, Lewis, because St. Maximum, like obviously when he's out the team, he's a big miss. No doubt about it, he's a big miss. But from my point of view, like I just said to you there, no, fingers crossed. I know obviously from a Brentford point of view, you hope he's not playing, but also it kind of, and Pete, jump in on this as well. Do you kind of want to make sure that St. Maximin's fully fit before he plays again? Like, do you want to see him in that 11 at the weekend? Don't get me wrong, we'll all be excited if he is in the 11. But is a small part of you thinking, do you know what, just go away, get yourself right, get yourself ready for this big run-in of games that we've got? How do you feel about St. Maximin?
Look, this is not a Steve Bruce era where you're playing players that are 50, 60, 70% fit. Eddie Howe has been quite selective on playing players if they're not ready. So in my opinion, I don't believe we will risk him. I think if Alan St. Maximin plays at the weekend, it will mean that he's been cleared 100% to play. Alan St. Maximin's injury record and physical record has been quite good. He's been lasting 90 minutes for the majority of the games this season. His injury record hasn't been bad at all compared to the previous seasons. And I think that's because we've been managing him better. In particular, this season, I think he's been managed better, certainly with Eddie Howe coming in and training and keeping his fitness levels up. I think Mad Mark mentions it as well. How can't afford to risk ASM? Yeah. I believe that 2 or 3 injury status is correct and that he needs all the time to recover for the difficult run that we have. Look, if it means that he's going to be fit for the remainder of the season and that he plays at Brighton and beyond, I would quite happily not play him on Saturday. Look, we proved without ASM, without Trippier, without Wilson, that we could go to a team that's fighting in the top 4 in West Ham and actually outplay them for long parts of the game. We ended up with more possession, which I don't know. Our guest that's going to come on shortly in the chat may know that, the last time that we had the most possession in a game in between, in any of the games that we've played recently, we had 52% possession in that game over the course of the 95 minutes. That doesn't happen very often for Newcastle, and we did that without our 3 best players. So I'd be confident going to Brentford with that team, with that mentality and the way of playing, to be able to go and affect that game again. But that's just me, in my opinion. So I wouldn't necessarily come on in. You know what I'm drinking. We've been here before. I can't do a show without a nice.
You'll have to put a little sticker on your glass just saying brandy. I don't know. I noticed Jimmy's in the chat. He's saying it to Remy Martin. Ian.
I wish it's the Ian J's tonight. It's the Ian J's brandy tonight. I wish it was the Remy Martin. Special occasions only. That's for sure. But look, I've talked about him. I've mentioned him. I've kind of dropped it in a little bit beforehand. There is no way we can do an away days without a few stats. And there's only one man to give us the stats. And look, I'm not going to wait around. Let's get him in.
Evening, lads.
How you doing?
Evening, Keith.
Evening, Lewis. Good to meet you.
Okay, that's a good build-up.
It's great, isn't it? Do you know what, Pete? I love watching, because we don't like pre-warn the guests or anything, do we? I love watching the away fans' reaction when they're all like.
He's great. I love it. He's definitely, Keith. You've definitely got the best entrance.
We need to get some pyrotechnics, don't we? At the end of the season, like a WrestleMania moment with pyrotechnics and everything going.
That would be unreal. Daz is watching the show. Daz, get on it. You know what to do. You know what to do. That's for sure. But Keith, welcome in to Away Days. And as always, and I've had this little sneak preview, you've got some fantastic stats for us. So fire away.
Yep, and I've got a bonus one right at the end. So there's a little tip at the end, Pete, there that you've just made us look quickly at. But Newcastle's all-time record in this fixture, got a really good record. Played 13 games against Brentford. They've won 8, they've drawn 1, and they've lost 4. The away record at Brentford is split. They've played 6 and they've won 3 and they've lost 3. Newcastle are unbeaten in the last 5 league games against Brentford. They've won 4 and they've drawn 1. They've scored 15 in those 5 games, going all the way back to 92-93 season. Before losing to Brentford in the Carabao Cup last year in the quarterfinals, Newcastle hadn't lost a league game to Brentford since 1948, which was also 1-0 at the old Griffin Park. Brentford's are in it. It's fun. This fixture is quite a strange one, the way it came about, because when we first played them, we were both in different kinds of form than we are now, and it's almost like it's flipped a little bit, because we're in a much better vein of form, particularly in the last 6 games, whereas Brentford are winless in the last 7 Premier League games. They've drawn 1 and lost 6, and there's no side which is currently on a run without a victory in the top flight like Brentford are at the minute. Now, going back to November, Pete and Chris, you'll remember it was us that were on a bad run. I don't think we'd won a game at that point. And Brentford's home record this season, they've played 13, they've won 4, they've drawn 2, and they've lost 7. Newcastle have scored more goals in this fixture, 27 to Brentford's 20. However, Brentford have had more clean sheets, 3 clean sheets to Newcastle's 2 in this fixture. Eddie Howe's managerial record against Brentford, he's managed 6 games, he's won 2, he's drawn 2, and he's had 2 defeats. So there's an average of 1.33 points per game in that fixture, whereas Thomas Frank's undefeated. 1 win and 1 draw against Newcastle. Top goal scorers for Brentford, Ivan Toney with 8 goals, and I hope I'm going to pronounce his name correctly, Brian Mbumo. He's had 7 goals this season for Brentford. And I was looking over the record books, and the top goal scorer for Newcastle in the Newcastle team is not Chris Wood. He's only scored 1 in 6. Dwight Gale, that man who's forever on the periphery for Newcastle, he scored in both fixtures in the Championship 3 goals in 5 games. He's the Newcastle's best goal scorer in that fixture. Pete, you wanted a stat as well before I came on. Now, when was the last time that Newcastle were so dominant in possession? Now, I think it was last season, Pete. And I think it was in the League Cup when they played Morecambe. Yes, I know they're in League Two, but Morecambe when they won 7-0 and Joe Linton scored a cracker of a goal.
Yeah, he did. I remember.
So that's how far you've got to go back.
That was on the left, wasn't it? And he absolutely power blasted it into the top right. Yeah,
brilliant goal. Yeah. World-class goal from Joe Linton.
Yeah. And that was at the beginning of last season in the League Cup. So that's how long it's been in all of those games where we've actually had most of the possession, which is why I knew I wanted to ask that stat, and I knew. And thank you, Keith, for bringing that to us.
I'm used to watching Newcastle. I've been accustomed, and I'm sure you lads have as well, over the last few seasons of watching rope-a-dope football. Muhammad Ali in the second stage of his career, he would be on the ropes and he began dominating. He was hitting people counters. Newcastle, I've just said for the last 4 or 5 years, certainly in the Brucey Ball, it's rope-a-dope football.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong, and this is why I think for certainly for us three, it's been a real pleasant surprise in seeing us play in a very different way, in a more controlling way.
For us, with more confidence, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, look, West Ham are fighting for top 4. They were in the top 4 or 5 going into that game on Saturday, and have had a fantastic season. We went to them, and the question was asked by a number of pundits and a number of Newcastle journalists is that you wouldn't know who was the team that was fighting for the top 4 in that game on Saturday. You wouldn't believe that it was West Ham that was, because the way in which we dominated the game, we dominated possession, and actually for long parts dominated possession from the defence. It was a really, really solid defensive performance where we had 4 defenders at the back that were all comfortable on the ball. We have our question marks about Kraft, but when on the ball, he looked comfortable. It was when he was off the ball, positioning wise, he was all over the place. But yeah, it's I'm glad you threw that one out there, Keith. That's for sure. Go on, Chris.
Pete, just to add, and I don't actually think we've spoke about it on the show, and I'm surprised. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but what was it like at the match when in the first 10 minutes, like West Ham didn't even get an half? Yeah. Remember? It was just ridiculous, wasn't it? It was just high press, and we were just going at them, and you could tell that Eddie Howard obviously said to them, "Go on, try and push, try and get that early first goal, and set your mark in the game." Obviously, it didn't come, but it was so bizarre watching a Newcastle team on the front foot so much, because normally over the last couple of years, especially under Bruce, it's always all backs to the wall, isn't it? And then we started to play in like the 75th minute. Or have a go. But under Eddie Howe, we're doing it the opposite way round, aren't we? We're really, really going at it from minute 1.
No, you're absolutely right. And you know what it did? It gave us a sense of confidence that we were really looking to get something from the game. And what that did in turn is allow us to start chanting and really getting behind the team, which then lifted the team even more so. It kind of gave us that overall confidence in that, because, with Alan St-Maximin, with us being told like literally 2 hours before the game that Alan St-Maximin's out, our catalyst in the team, that was always going to drop the confidence, and you could feel it in the game. 10, 15 minutes before kickoff, there was a sense of, I think we're going to get beat today. I think it's going to be a tough 90 minutes. And then they come out and play like that, and it's like, hey, we're in this game, and we look the better team when we should be 2 or 3-0 up in the first 10 minutes. And then after that, so we have the flurry of chances in the first 10 minutes. But what really kind of gave us the confidence is from 10 minutes to 20 minutes where we just controlled the game. So we knew that Antonio wasn't going to press us. So all we did is just play it across the back four and literally say, come and press us. And he was like, I'm not pressing you. And we were saying, come and press us. And we're just playing it back and forth, Shaw and Bell. We're just playing it back and forth.
Yeah.
Then back to Dubravka, then out to Target, then out to Kraft. And it was just like, you know, at that point we were saying, okay, well, we're controlling the game here. Then we were playing the long balls in and behind, and Wood was getting on the end of things. Fraser was getting on the end of things. Even Murphy was looking dangerous at times in that first half. And it just gave us that confidence. And we were slightly deflated when the goal went in because we were looking at each other saying, how has that happened?
Yeah.
We dominated the game. But then as soon as we hit back right on the half time. What is it? 40, bang on 45 minutes. And it was just like, yeah, we deserve this. We deserve this. We can go win this game, and it just changed the whole mindset of the game. And I do think if we go in with that same mentality on Saturday, you know, it could be a really, really good game for us. That's for sure.
David Inglis has said that I think we've forgotten about Lewis. We need to. We just went all Newcastle then, didn't we? Sorry, Lewis. We just love it. Love it.
We're gonna mix and match. Obviously, we're talking about Brentford a little bit. But look,
one of your viewers, John, was asking if I look in the mirror behind and wished that I was a Newcastle fan. So the answer is no, John.
No, and I wouldn't expect anything different, Lewis. That's for sure. So before we get to predictions, I think we've got a few questions that are starred. Let's go to a few questions. We'll put those questions to Lewis and the rest of the panel before we get to those very important predictions for Saturday.
Yeah. So Tom Dixon asks, what will be Newcastle or Brentford's main threats by both sides? And I know, Pete, that's always something you touch on. But Lewis, starting with yourself, who are you worried about most in terms of Newcastle? So what players are you worried about? And similarly, what players do you think are going to have a big impact for yourselves for Brentford?
Yeah, well, I think I've seen glimpses of Willett recently. I mean, it's just on Match of the Day because I was on my way to the game when you guys were playing West Ham the other day, so I didn't get to see it live. But he looked really, really excellent on the ball, actually, when I saw him the other day. So he looks as though he's in form. Joe Linton, who I had the impression that you guys didn't rate him at all, had a storming game against us up at your place. So, and I understand that he's kept some of that form going. So he's a worry. I'm glad that Wilson's not playing. I'm glad that San Maximin's not playing. And I'm glad that Trippier's not playing as well, because you know, I know that they're three of your best players. But for me, I think Willock, he went on a long goal scoring run last season, didn't he? And I'm just concerned that he's about to do the same again. So, yeah, possibly him, I think. And I think from a Brentford point of view, I think De Silva is that, you know, he is getting back to full fitness. He is a quality player, and I think he'll cause you problems if he gets on the ball enough on Saturday.
Yeah. No, I agree. Just quickly touching on that question. De Silva's the one that worries me, especially the way you were talking about him as well, Lewis, before. I already know he's a good player, but your eyes lit up when you were talking about De Silva, so I'll be keeping a close eye on him at the weekend. What about you, Pete? What about you, Keith? Who are the threats for Brentford, do you think?
Go on, Keith.
Well, for me, I think Ivan Toney's going to have a point to prove. You know, with some of his comments and actions off the pitch. If Tony's back in the team, point to prove. He'll want to ram it down a few people's throats. And he did score in that fixture at St James's Park. He's going to be extra fired up. I think it was touched on before as well. You know, I've rated what I've seen of that Norgard as well. You know, I think Lewis touched on it earlier. So I think he's a concern. And also Henry as well. So he scored at St James's as well in the earlier corresponding fixture as well last year.
Yeah. Lots of good players. Lots of good players. What about you, Pete?
I'm going to go for someone different. Rico Henry. Rico Henry is like I've talked about him before. He's a terrific left-sided defender. He can play wing back. He can play left back. He scored against us with a terrific goal at St James's Park. I do worry about that, and for that reason, I think we need Manquillo in, because Manquillo is a much better tracker of a defender. He can track a player into the box. Craft, wise, is all over the place, and players can get in and behind him. So Manquillo coming back would really give me the confidence that defensively we would be really solid as a unit. And we'd be able to track someone like Rico Henry and stop him from getting in and behind. Because he likes to get forward. He likes to get in and behind things. He's a very attack-minded. He can defend, but he's a very attack-minded, left-sided wing back or full back, however you want it. I really like and Keith said the name before, and I don't want to get it wrong. Is it Bremo?
Yeah.
He's a terrific player. I've watched him a few times, and I really do. I think he's underrated. I think he's a very good player, and there has been some games this season where him and Toney have played up top, and actually I've thought he was the better player out of the two in terms of his performances. So I'm not overly I obviously would be glad to see Toney out, but he's still a concern up there, and he's a very different player that we've had to manage. It'll be interesting because he's a lot smaller, kind of nippier player, and it'll be interesting to see whether Byrne, who's a big, tall, 6'7" centre back, is able to deal with a player that's quite nippy and in and around him, rather than up against him trying to be that kind of that focal point of a team like Antonio and one or two other players are going to be. So it's going to be a little bit of a different challenge on Saturday, and he's a player I'm worried about. Norgard as well. I'm worried about because he's a good midfield player. Although I do think that if you're going to play a two in midfield, that I think we will overpower that midfield with our three, and the way in which we work and our work rate in that midfield, I think we would overwork that in the end, because Norgard's a good tackler, but we've got two fantastic recoveries of the ball in Joe Linton and Willett, especially high up the pitch. So I think that might counteract things, but we'll see. But there's a few players, that worry me. And Brentford have got some talented players. And obviously, if Eriksen comes off the bench, we're going to need to be aware of that. That's for sure as well. So very, very interesting in how things are going to play out. But look, we'll end this. So we've got any more questions?
We've got a couple more. So I'll do a couple more, and then we'll
Lewis,
move on.
You okay to stay on for a few more minutes?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no problem. Yeah,
let's do it. Why not?
Good man. Lewis, I'm going to clue what Jeff's on about here. I'm going to ask you. I hope it doesn't offend you, or I hope you know what he's on about. He's asking, so Lewis, what happened to the Brentford Nylons?
Yeah, I don't actually know. I know what he's talking about, but I don't know where that's got to.
No. What is the Brentford Nylons?
Nylons,
tights.
Right. Okay. I was like, I thought it was like a club or something. I was thinking, what?
You would have no idea, Lewis, but Jeff is sometimes with his questions is way out there.
He probably knows more about it than I do, to be fair.
We love him to bits, Jeff. Chris, I've actually got one question here from a friend of the channel, Sean Casey. He's actually tweeted it in a response to one of our tweets. Okay. And he wants to ask you, Lewis. He said, ask about Phil Giles and the Geordie with the PhD in statistics and the only man to make Moneyball successful in football. Now, I hope you know what he means by that.
I do, yeah. So he's we used to have two directors of football who were really in charge of playing style, recruitment, the kind of ethos of the club, I suppose. And Phil Giles is one of them. The other has just moved on. He's gone to Southampton, Rasmus. So at the moment, I think I'm right in saying I don't think that he's been replaced yet, and I don't know if there are plans to replace him. I might be wrong on this, but so I think Phil Giles is the one director of football. He is a massive Newcastle fan, and this is the worry that he at some point might kind of end up at your club. He's a Geordie. He still goes, I think, to a number of Newcastle games, and he is brilliant. He's the stats man, and the club, the owner is a guy called Matthew Benham. Don't know if you've come across him. A little bit like the Brighton guy Tony Bloom. The two used to work together. They fell out actually, but they both have made their money on the back of like football betting with stats, things like XG. Those two were quite early on. And Phil Giles worked for Matthew Benham for a number of years at his company, and has now, moved into the Brentford setup and is a key part of our success. So hands off.
No, come and get me, please.
He's a good lad as well. Really good lad.
Lewis is sending a message to his boys, Keith and Chris. Hands off. You ain't having any of it. I love it.
Lewis, we've been discussing this the last couple of weeks, amongst ourselves, but it'd be interesting to hear your views on how many teams do you think are now in this relegation scrap. Shane Mawson thinks that there could be at least 7 teams. Is that your belief as well?
I think there are 7. I think from Everton downwards, everyone's involved. I think that Villa are on the fringes of that, but I think they've probably just about got enough points. I think Southampton and Palace are clear now. So I think it's 7 from Everton downwards. My own feeling is, and this might end up being horribly inaccurate, but I think us 2 teams are going to pull clear. I also think that Burnley are going to get out of that as well. They've done it so often, as have you, actually. So I think it's 3 from 4. I worry. I think Norwich with Brentford have got the easiest run-ins, but I think they've left themselves too much to do. So I think Norwich are probably gone, and I think it's 2 of Everton, Leeds, and Watford. Everton's run-in is horrific. They've got to play all the top 8 still, and I think they've arguably got the. I'm just not sure how well equipped Frank Lampard and that squad is for a relegation scrap. Watford, I think, again they're in danger of falling adrift. They had a bad result last night, as did Leeds. Unless Leeds get some of their injured players back quickly, particularly Phillips and Bamford, I think I can see them going down. So I think Norwich probably, and then 2 of Watford, Leeds, and Everton. That would be my view on it.
And just while we're talking on those fixtures, I've got Brentford's fixtures coming up after Newcastle, so I've got the next fixtures that will take us to April the 30th. So this is the first set of fixtures. So after Newcastle, you've got 2 massive games in Norwich and Burnley in the next 2, followed by Leicester away and Chelsea away. So, after the game on Saturday against Newcastle, you're away at Norwich. You're away at Norwich, home to Burnley. So you've got 3 out of the next 4 away from home. With Burnley the only home team that you play, and then after that period, after Chelsea, you've got West Ham at home, Watford away, Tottenham at home, and then Manchester United away. So, what are you thinking about some of those results? I mean, the ones that stand out for me is the initial ones, is that after Newcastle, Norwich and Burnley, teams in and around us, they are massive, massive games. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of us are thinking that this is make or break for us, the next 3 games. We have got a little bit of a cushion there because of how well we did early in the season, but I think the feeling is, and I would share this, that we need at least 4 or 5 points out of 9. And, if we can beat Norwich, beat Burnley, we're pretty much safe. But I'd be happy not to lose any of those 3 games, really, because they are 6-pointers. We've got 1 or 2 other games which look winnable later on.
Yeah.
So we've got Watford still. We've got Leeds on the last day, which could be fun. If there's something riding.
Wow.
I think that could be after 89 minutes on that one, whatever the result. So yeah, but we've played Liverpool and City, and most of the top teams. So there aren't that many that look really problematic. I think Spurs, Man United, obviously Chelsea's going to be tough. Southampton as well, I think, are in really good form. So that's going to be a difficult fixture. But there should be enough there for us to scrape, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 points. That would take us up to 33, 34.
Yeah.
You look at the form of some of the teams like Everton and Leeds and Watford, and they're all struggling. I think only Newcastle and Burnley are on a real upwards trajectory at the moment. But I think we've just about got enough of a cushion there to survive, I think. And I think you guys will survive. I really do. I think you've got enough there. You've got a fantastic manager, and there's a feel good around the club, isn't there? So I think you'll do it. Burnley will certainly pull clear. I think I cannot see them getting relegated. But yeah,
I was convinced that
it's going to be a decent relegation battle. Sometimes it's just like over, isn't it? And you can tell from miles off who's going down. You can't really this season, which is good.
No. Look, I was convinced that Burnley were going to get relegated. I was convinced. I was thinking, this is the season. They're barely picking up points. Yes, they had games in hand, but it was against Tottenham, and they've got some other teams to play that are difficult. But they just keep churning them out.
That was amazing.
Like how it used to be called Fergie time. Back in the day, it's this point in the season, February onwards. It's kind of like referred to as Burnley time.
It used to be Coventry. It used to be Coventry that used to do it back in the day when the Strachan used to get some results together. And then Sunderland in the early 2010s, round about February, they'd start to get going. Sorry to mention the name, Pete. I know this is a Sunderland free channel, but for ages until about 2016-17, they'd start to get these results from nowhere, because January we're like, oh, they're going down this year, they're going down. Then all of a sudden, they'd beat Arsenal or beat Chelsea away or something. Like, where did that come from? And yesterday was a case in point, because they got at the weekend, they got that amazing results when they'd only had one win in the season against Brighton away, and then last night against Spurs. I mean, who would have picked that out? That was an amazing result. Ben Mee.
And it's just like I say, it's just that they pick up results like that, back-to-back results. Brighton, who I was convinced Brighton were going to win, and then Tottenham, off the back of beating Man City at the Etihad, then go to Burnley and get beaten. It's just like, you know what? They're doing it again. Like, what can you do? So you kind of like, and Lewis is right, you kind of like look past Burnley and you think, Everton are struggling, Leeds are struggling.
Yeah.
I really think Everton and Leeds have got a good chance of going down this year.
The one thing,
go on.
Sorry, Pete. The one thing I would say about Everton, though, is the home form at Goodison. And Chris, you would know this yourself as well. Did they turn over Leeds recently 3-0 at Goodison? So they were beaten by us, and then they sort of rebounded. And I still think they're capable. If you remember going back all those years as well, Wimbledon in the early 90s, 93, 94 season, I think they were 2-0 down, and they somehow managed to win 3-2 to stay up that year. So they're always capable at Goodison of getting a result or two, I think.
Yeah, you're right. Interesting. Very interesting. But
we've just got a couple more questions, which I'll quickly fire at Lewis, because I am conscious of time. And this is a really interesting one from Tom Dixon, where Tom asks, if Brentford do go down, does Lewis think they will come straight back up?
I think it'd be difficult because of the exodus of players. The best players will get picked off if that happens. So I wouldn't see Henry, Norgard, Brian and Buemo, that they would be gone, I think. And so it'd be rebuilding job. I think we'd have the parachute money from the Premier League to help us. And if there's one thing that Brentford does well, it's invest money well. So I think we'd be there or thereabouts. I don't think it would be like a done deal, though. But I think what we wouldn't do is we wouldn't become a kind of a relegation candidate. You can see some teams go straight into free fall, can't you? And I can't see that happening with Brentford. It's just too well run club. So I think I'd be confident about playoffs. Back in the top two, not sure, but it won't happen. That's a hypothetical question.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Any more to finish off questions wise?
Well, we have got a quick one, and to be honest, I'd like to hear the view of Keith and Pete on this one, because I haven't seen anything, and I just wondered if you had. Ian Barron asks, have you seen the plans for the new Newcastle Stadium? I haven't.
Ooh.
But I've not been on Twitter today, so possibly.
There was a really good video that I watched the other day on another channel. Just like a short 12-minute clip, Tyneside Life, I believe the channel is. And he brought up something I hadn't actually thought of, a scenario I hadn't thought of. Now, this is probably like 5 or so, 10 years into the future. And I don't know how concrete it is because it's the only thing that I've seen on it. But basically, he was of the opinion that St. James's will move eventually from it because of all the Saudi 2030 vision.
Right.
Have it been more than football. And I mean, not to go too much into it, but there's offices outside of the city centre which are going to be moving to the centre of Newcastle. They're developing a bit of land for that, which is owned by the Reuben brothers. And that'll free up quite a bit of land, which won't be as complicated as some of the other areas of the city to develop on the parkland. And it sort of opened my eyes up and thought, you know what, I hadn't actually seen that coming, but it actually makes sense. It's quite clever. But as I say, that's the only source that I've seen it from. I haven't seen anything else.
Interesting.
Chris, I've just sent you the link.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks.
It's a fantastic video. And if anyone's not seen it, I'm so glad that you've seen it, Keith, because I was about to say exactly the same thing. And the YouTube show, it's the YouTube channel, it's Tyneside Life. Actually, he's got a few really good videos on there, and I was watching it last night, and he talks about the kind of basically the PIF, and he talks about where he thinks the stadium is going to be built, and actually where he starts the video is where he believes it could potentially be part of their restructure in the future. He's adamant, the person that does the video is adamant that PIF, as part of buying Newcastle United, will want to build a brand new stadium regardless. They will want to build a brand new stadium because that will be their stamp and their mark on world football in building one of the best stadiums in world football for Newcastle United. And like I say, it's only, as Keith said, it's only a 12-minute video, but it's a fantastic video. He actually gazumps a number of places, like there's a couple of places that he kind of says that people have been talking about, like Leeds Park, and is it
the Arena was another one as well that could have been developed. Newcastle Arena land.
Is it Time Moor or is it something else?
Nunsmoor and the surrounding parkland areas, they were all knocked off. And another one that was suggested, he briefly mentioned, but it sounded like there were complications. Sorry for giving spoilers of the video, but another one was the Falcons land, which I hadn't thought of either, which is where the Kingston Park is in that part of the city. There's a lot of area, but apparently there's green area there, and apparently that would be quite fraught with complications and opposition as well. But the area by the ministry, which is in the Benton area of that part of the city, about 3-4 miles of the ground, it made a lot of sense to me. You could, especially if it's a switch between the stack land where he stood at the start of the video, where the office development could be, and moving office staff there. that to me made a lot of sense, because theoretically you could have another Etihad campus, but in the northeast in Newcastle.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like I said, still worth watching the video. A great, sorry, it was Townmore. Thank you, Gary. Absolutely spot on. I think the brandies are going. But yeah, it was Townmore, and that was a place that was talked about quite a lot actually, in terms of a place where we could redevelop and we could build a new stadium. But he kind of puts that to bed. Definitely worth a watch. Like I say, 12 minutes or so.
Yeah, I look forward to watching that.
Keith has said there's also another video on there. Later on down from 2 weeks ago that says, that PIF haven't just bought Newcastle for like, for Newcastle reasons. There are other reasons why they've bought Newcastle United. So there's a few videos on there, but sort of Tyneside Life is definitely the one to have a look at. A really, really interesting watch. So I'm glad I wasn't the only one that found that by chance. And actually, I've got to be honest. It was the Geordies down south. It was Daryl, who's a regular in the chat, that actually posted it on the Geordies down south chat. And he put it on there. He tends to find all these videos from all over the place, out of like every nook and cranny, and he found it. And I watched it, and I thought it was really, really interesting. So it'd be wrong of me to mention it without mentioning Daryl. That's for sure. But look, we're going to end it there. It's been an absolute pleasure, first and foremost, to have Lewis from BEESOTTED Bees podcast, Brentford podcast, on the show. Massive thanks to you. It's been amazing to chat to you. So much good knowledge about Brentford and in football in general, as we would have expected anyway. But absolute pleasure for you to come on our show. And from certainly from me, Chris, and Keith, best of luck for the rest of the season after Saturday, as we always say. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully you'll be in the Premier League next season, so we can do a few more of these.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks a lot for having me on. Really enjoyed it, and thanks for the questions that have come through as well. And Jeff's just clarified about Brentford nylons. It's not just tights; it's trousers, bedding, shirts as well. So he knows his stuff better than I do.
Yeah, he's a man of great knowledge. Jeff. But before we go, a prediction for tomorrow, Lewis. Not tomorrow, for Saturday. What do we think?
3-3. Yep, same score as at St James's Park. Why not? I think we wouldn't be too disappointed with a draw, to be honest. I just hope it's a decent game with lots of goals.
Wow, 3-3 again. Imagine that, 3-3 of the season.
That'd be brilliant, wouldn't it?
Well, no, it wouldn't be. We need 3 points.
Can you remember Man United when they did that twice with Barcelona, the 2-3 draws there back in the day in the Champions League?
Jesus. But look, Keith, your prediction for Saturday, what are you thinking?
I was, funnily enough, what Lewis was saying, I was thinking that when I was looking at the stats, I thought, what would that be if it was another 3-3 draw? But unfortunately, I cannot really see Newcastle getting as many goals, because if you'd noticed, a lot of their chances have came from set pieces, really. A lot of their goals came from set pieces. So I'm going to go another low scoring draw. I think it might be me heart speaking, because I want the run to continue at least for another couple of weeks. I'm going to say, and I'm going to risk being a Stu Penman, get with me same score every week, a 1-1 again, score draw.
No, a fair point. It would be a decent point to take, as I think that, providing that Tottenham beat Leeds, which is not a guarantee after yesterday's result, a point would take us above Leeds in the table. So certainly with their awful goal difference at the moment, so wouldn't be necessarily the worst thing in the world. You've got Mad Mark, who's put Newcastle 3-0. Very, very confident for Mad Mark. You've got El Sealy, who's got Newcastle 2-1. You've got Tom Dixon. Tom Dixon's gone even more He's gone 2-1 Newcastle, Willock and Wood. I tell you what, if that comes out, I'll be gutted. I've not put a wager on that one. I'm not a betting man, but I would have wish I had if that result comes out. Jeff, typically Jeff, 0-0. He's gone the absolute opposite to Lewis. 3-3, nah, 0-0. And our good friend of the channel, Gary, has gone Newcastle 3-1. Good lad. But Chris, what we saying? 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon. Are we going to be jumping for joy, or are we going to be head in hands?
Well, I said we were getting beat last week, didn't I, against West Ham? So I'm going to be a little bit more positive this week. And Lewis, you know, as far as I'm concerned, Lewis, if we end up with a draw, I think it's a good point for the both of us. But I think we're going to sneak it. I think it's going to be 2-1. So I'm going to agree with Georgie Toon for life, and I'm going to say 2-1 win to Newcastle.
Ooh, another win in there. We've got Colin Bentham is gone 4-1-2. Wow, we've got some really going for it tonight. It's not normally like this, Lewis. I've got to be honest with you.
No, it's not.
Nobody was quite pessimistic, so it's very positive. Thank you for tuning in, Mad Mark. Massive supporter of the show, and we really do appreciate it. Look, I'm going to go 1-0 Newcastle win. I think it's going to be tight. I think a goal will win it, and I do believe. Certainly, I'm thinking about the way in which defensively we've been set up recently. That I think will be really solid, and I think a goal could potentially win the game, and I think we'll get it. Yeah, I think it'll be entertaining. I think there'll be a lot of chances from either end, from either team. But yeah, I think a goal could potentially do it. So I'm going to go 1-0 Newcastle United. But we'll see. Anything's possible. We know that with both teams this season, in some of their performances, either way, that anything is possible. And Jeff's absolutely right. I've seen 2-1. There's always Jeff to kind of put a smile on everyone's faces as we wrap up the show. But yeah, look, there's been a lot of love for Lewis in the chat tonight. We really, really appreciate you, Lewis. Great guy, great knowledge on football, and more importantly on Brentford as well. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thanks a lot.
And like I say, fingers crossed, we both stay in the league so we can have more of these chats, away days next year, provided we stay in the league as well, which I believe that we will. So hopefully we're both still in the league and we can talk more Premier League football and away days. So look, everyone in the chat, massive thank you for your support with away days. We will be back next week with another away days, previewing the Brighton game. Some of the regulars that were there for the Brighton preview will be back again, including Chloe. As well as that, we have lots to talk about with regards to the future. A new show is beckoning on Loaded HQ. It will be coming next week on Wednesday, 8 o'clock, and it is the Talk of the Toon with Jordan Cronin. So will we be back? Get my words out. We will be back Wednesday, 8 p.m. Talk of the Toon to talk all things Newcastle United with Newcastle World's own Jordan Cronin, and we cannot wait to get in to all things Newcastle United. So please look out for that. Lots and lots of Newcastle content to come on Loaded HQ. But for now, massive thank you. Goodbye. And as always, we do love playing away. You guys take care. Have a good evening.